Welcome, everyone. This is Getting Started with Tech for K-1 teachers. I'm Michelle Majors. I'm from the Research Planning and Assessments Office. I'm here with my colleagues, Krista Carrillo, also from the Research Planning and Assessments Office. And then we designed this PD in collaboration with our colleagues from the Department of Technology. And I'll turn it over to Zareen to introduce herself and her colleague as well.
Hi there, I'm Zareen Poonen-Levine. I'm currently the Director of Digital Learning, but I've been in the district for about 15 years, previously a third grade classroom teacher, and excited to share with you some ideas about K-1 assessment and technology. And I'm here with Devlin. Devlin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Devlin Jackson, part of the digital learning team, focusing on family technology support, also supporting with the kinder support this year, kinder and first grade. Super excited to be here today.
All right, well, let's get started. So as we are in this learning space together, we appreciate everyone just kind of observing these norms and recognizing that this session is recorded. So please turn off your sound and we are capturing questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. So we will be able to answer questions as we go through the session from the Q&A box, and we'll be sharing information out through the chat. Yeah, we just appreciate you all making the time and being here and observing these norms. Next slide. This is our agenda for this session. And hopefully by the end of the session, you'll learn how to introduce devices to young learners, view how to use Seesaw and Clever badges with students, review briefly the STAR assessment administration process, and find out about some upcoming STAR PDs and additional supports around the STAR administration and assessments. Next slide. And then I'll turn it over to Zareen.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, we're really excited to share with you some new digital learning resources that we have. So I'm going to show you a couple of these. We have some new K-5 digital learning getting started guides, and these aren't specific to assessment, but they'll kind of lay the groundwork for your K-1 students to get started with technology so that they can be more successful with these assessments. So I'm just going to quickly show you the kinder guide. The first grade guide is the same format. And this is something that you can reference and you can use parts of it. You can bounce around. This is the table of contents where we have some different categories. You can click on any of these links to jump to different sections. I'm going to skip past the framing, but in the preparing for digital learning section, we have a bunch of information that we'll talk through a little bit more in our slide deck about the apps that students are using, the access to Chromebooks. And then in this digital fluency section down here, we have some more information about what kinder and first grade students in the respective decks should be learning with technology for this year, and what they should be able to do on the keyboard and that kind of thing. And also some digital citizenship lessons that we've just launched along with family letters that you can send home in multiple languages. And lastly, some lessons that you can jump right into that we think are really great starting points for students to start developing their ideas about how they use technology for deeper learning, for all of these great creativity uses. So those are guides that you have access to. And feel free to share those with colleagues. And then next, we want to just talk about how you get those devices, because that's an important starting point as well.
All right. So we just wanted to do a quick overview and just wanted to kind of say the same way that you're introducing devices to students, same way that you're introducing materials in general to all of your K students. So really thinking about, before we're even using the technology in the classroom, how are we managing it? And we have a few suggestions for you from the digital learning team. The first thing that we suggest that all educators do is check that the devices work. You may have Chromebooks in your cart already. The first thing we suggest is make sure they're charged up and they're updated. And we've linked a kind of a really quick step-by-step process on how you can update Chromebooks. After that, labeling the devices with a number. You can use like painter's tape, even masking tape, and just put a number to so you kind of know, oh, this student has device number 1 or this student has device number 2. That way you kind of can keep a track of when students are using them and when they're put back, that you have the same number that you started with. The next one that we suggest is kind of a twofer, printing and storing clever badges. We'll go into depth a little bit about how you can access those clever badges for your students and some ideas around how you can store them. But we just want to make sure that that's something that you're thinking about before you're even introducing those devices to students. And lastly, and I think this is one of the most important ones, is creating a schedule of when to use those Chromebooks. We know in kindergarten and first grade classrooms, use of centers is big during that time. So how are we leveraging center time when you're introducing Chromebooks to your students? Kind of using that morning exploration time. When I was in the classroom, morning exploration time was a great time to pull out something new and have a couple of kids try it out without it feeling super stressful. So that could be a way to bring it into. But the last one, really prioritizing times when you have extra support. Is there a time where you have a para, or if you have a parent volunteer that comes in, even leveraging like admin and just having a simple ask, this is a new thing for us. Is there a day throughout the week where you can kind of just dedicate 20 to 30 minutes to come in my classroom? So I have another adult in the space to help my students get introduced and kind of engage with devices. Doing those things are all just some ideas and recommendations that we have to kind of launch devices in your classroom. I'm gonna go to the next one. All right, and then how do I get devices for my class? We've gotten a lot of questions and email pings these last few weeks from kindergarten educators, first grade educators, and their support teams about, hey, we usually use iPads. Why are we shifting to Chromebooks? One thing we want to name is that the cool thing about Chromebooks is that they are district wide. So from pre-K to 12th grade, our digital learning team has support and ways to support you if anything happens with your Chromebook. In ways that iPads, we don't have that same touch point. We know that kindergarten and first grade teachers love the touchscreen features of iPads, but the great thing about Chromebooks now is that they are also touchscreen. So you can get in there the same way that you got in there with iPads. We also just have learned throughout the years that when we're using iPads, they're perfect for single user use. You have your Apple ID, you can log in. If something gets a little wonky, you can reset it back to your Apple ID. It is not great for multi-user use. So if we're thinking about students using this over time and multiple students can log into different devices, iPads just don't hold up the same way that Chromebooks do. So as a district, we've made the shift to Chromebooks. If you want to have deeper conversations about that, feel free to reach out to your digital learning partner. I mean, we're happy to kind of dive in deeper with that topic. Another thing is really kind of thinking about device distribution. Across the district right now, our team is working really hard to deploy devices to pre-K classrooms all the way up to 12th grade, and we don't have a huge team. So really thinking about partnering with your school's device manager. And if you don't know who your device manager is, we've put a link in here for you to kind of check and do a quick search of who your digital partner is, or your digital device manager is, sorry. And if you don't see your schools listed, that's when you would check in with your admin or your principal. You may not have one yet, but that's a great way to have a deeper conversation with your admin about, hey, I didn't see us on the list. Is there a way, are you our device manager? Do you know who may be interested? Or maybe you may be interested, and we would be excited to partner with you and your site deeply with that. And then the next step would be connecting with your digital learning cohort partner. Each cohort in SFUSD has a digital learning cohort partner. That person comes out to the site. They are your go-to anything digital learning related. And if they don't already have a device plan for your site, it's great to kind of chat with them. Most of them already do have a plan. So just making sure that you're connecting with device manager at your site, admin at your site, and then looping in digital learning partner. One of those people should have a next step for you. All right, and we're going to pause here for any questions. We feel like that was a lot of information, but if you have any questions, this is a great time to type it in the chat, write it in Q&A. I'm not really sure how many folks we have before I say unmute, but feel free to go for it.
We did have one question. Are there enough touchscreen Chromebooks for every student in SFUSD to have one?
So we are rolling it out. There are enough touchscreen Chromebooks for all pre-K through second grade. We are doing a slow rollout for the upper grades. We found a way to kind of make it work in a good way, but we definitely have enough for pre-K through second. So we're prioritizing making sure those folks have it. because they're the little ones who will be using it in different ways, and then supporting second grade and up.
In the chat, thank you, Devlin. It says, my computers have students' names in there to sign in, but not students I know. Is there a way to make them show the camera so they can log in with their Clever badges?
Yes. So that is a very quick fix actually. If you can write your name, or I guess maybe Crystal, you can give me her contact or their contact information, and I can get in contact with
Definitely.
their digital learning partner, and we'll kind of loop you in. All we kind of need for the back end for other folks, if it ever happens to you, all we need is the serial number of the device, and then someone can remotely switch that over from an email login to a QR code so they can badge it. Usually takes about a day or two, but I can work on that for you.
And then I got one other question here about if the device manager is the same as the DLEAF. That's a great question. So our DLEAFs are our tech leads in schools. Sometimes it is the same person if someone is signed up for both of those jobs, but they're two separate jobs. So sometimes it's two different people. So if you don't see their name on that list or you're not sure, just check in with your admin, your principal, or your assistant principal, and they'll be able to tell you. Some of them are signing up right now too. So that's happening as we speak. All right, I'll move us ahead. And if you still have more questions, feel free to keep putting them in the Q&A or in the chat. Next, we want to talk to you a little bit about the learning apps that we have for elementary students. And we wanted to show you this progression so you kind of see what TK K1 students have access to and what we recommend, and also what they will be doing at second grade and up. So what we recommend for the youngest learners, oh, and the other thing I want to say about that is we want there to be coherence across schools. So it's not like if you're going to one school, you have these set of apps, and if you're going to this other school, you have these set of apps. So our digital learning team has thought about what are the best tools and what will make sense for everyone and be kind of the most useful for students. We also don't want our young students to have to learn many, many different apps throughout what they're doing. So we wanted to concentrate on tools that we think are very powerful. So for your K1 students, the two tools that we want to most strongly recommend are Seesaw and Clever. Clever is the tool that they'll have a badge for, and it just gets them to log in so they don't have to type in their long email or password. They can just use the badge to log in. And Seesaw, I'll be showing you a little bit more about all the really great activities in there that you can use with your students. And then just so you know, in the future, second grade and up is when we recommend students start getting into the Google Suite, so Google Docs and Slides and Classroom and all of that fun stuff. There are other apps that are available for students as well if you want to go beyond those core apps that we really recommend. The two most common ones that you'll see are Dreambox for math games and Raz Kids for reading in English and Spanish. And those are both purchased district-wide for K1 students. There's also some other apps, and we have more approved apps on our page if you want to kind of dive further into more apps.
All right, so Clever badges. How do I print Clever badges and store them? So the first thing is accessing the Clever portal. We're going to suggest that you go to clever.sfusd.edu, click that Google button that logs you in with your credentials instead of typing it all the way in. And then once you're there, you're going to—
I'm lost.
Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. Once you're on the Clever portal page, you're going to go all the way to the top of your portal, and it'll have a tab called Classes. You'll click on that Classes tab, and you'll select your classroom. And then you can click Download the class set of badges, and this will download the badges for all of the students in your classroom. We suggest printing them off. And then one thing that we've seen in a couple of classrooms in SFUSD is that those educators on the right side of your screen, there's a little picture with the QR codes. Those educators have used like note cards, index cards, and written their students' names on the back of it. And then when you flip it over, they've put those QR code badges kind of taped our glue stick onto the index card. So the students kind of know, oh, when it's time to use devices, I walk up, I grab my badge, I scan it in, and I can put it back. Just so it's a way to save it. I've also seen it, we don't have an image of it, but I was actually at ER Taylor today. And one thing that they do is they tape it to the backside of, they tape it to the backside of their device, and they kind of have like this kind of slide-in slot similar to like the library kind of checkout cards back in the day. And they have those students pull it out there, scan, and then leave it back in that space. Those are two cool ways. And then this is a little video to show you of how students actually hold up their badges to their Chromebooks. All right, very simple. And it gets them right into Clever. So it's a really cool resource. And any of our SFUSD approved and purchased apps are up there ready for you to go.
All right, next we want to show you some things about Seesaw, and this is the part that I think is the most fun and exciting, that I'm excited to show you about all the activities that you have that you can use with your students right away. So I apologize, there's a lot of text on this slide, but I just want you to have the steps when you're going back and doing this. So this first section is about how you sign in to Seesaw as a teacher. You go to this website, seesaw.me. And then the important thing when you're logging in is that you select that you're a teacher and you click on that sign in with Google button to make sure you can enter in your SFUSD credentials. And next, I'm going to just show you in the Seesaw site some of the great things that they have in there. Oops, this one. Okay, so up here in the left is my name, and you might just have one class, but if you have multiple classes, when you click on your name, all your classes will show up here. And so I'm in this playground class, and the really exciting thing is you don't have to enter your students' names in here. It's already rostered for you. So you'll log into Seesaw as a teacher and you'll find your class. All your student names will be in there. It'll be the same names that are in Synergy. So when you're taking attendance, all those same names will already be in your Seesaw class. So there's no setup. The second really fun thing is there's this icon here for library. So if you click on library, there's a whole bunch of already created Seesaw activities that you can assign to your class very quickly and easily. One of my colleagues likes to say, it's like teachers pay teachers, but you don't have to pay. It's free and it's all on Seesaw and it's all accessed digitally. So in the Seesaw library here, you can filter by grade level. So I'll go to first grade. And then this is a really cool set of activities that Seesaw has just pushed out that's perfect for what we're talking about today, some formative assessment practice. And there's many other activities in here too. So if you're looking for a math activity or a science activity, and I'll show you what that looks like to preview it and assign it. So here we are with their little library of assessment activities, and these are K1 friendly activities. And it's a really fun, low pressure way that students can just learn about what is an assessment and how do I answer questions and how do I interact with the computer in a really like friendly, non-threatening way. So I'm going to scroll down and there's these different categories. Math is up here at the top, language arts, and these community building polls are a really nice way to start because there's no right answer and it's just interacting with the tool with a fun question. So here's one called the best pet poll that you can assign to your students. And if I wanted to assign it to my class, all I have to do is click on the assign button right here. And then it's going to pop up with my class name. I don't have to enter anything here. This is if I want to organize it further, but you can just click on assign now. And then it's going to show up in my classroom. I can go to my classroom and see it there. I'm going to go back to the resource library so I show you a preview of this as well. So if I click on preview right here, you can see this is the little Seesaw activity. It's saying, and it has the directions that are recorded with voice as well. So I can listen to it in English or Spanish.
Choose the animal that you think makes the best pet.
And then you have the choices over here so students can practice choosing something in a multiple choice format here. And one thing we recommend too is there's a button here called present to class. So you can start doing this as a whole class and it'll show you what the Seesaw interface looks like. And you can model how you would select things on here, how you would click on those buttons. So that's one example there. And I'll show you one other one. You can explore all these on your own as well. Here's a math one, adding in base 10. And this has two different options for what you assign to students. The first one is practice mode. And that means that students can answer it as many times as they want, and they can check their answer right there on the page. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I can play around with, I can drag these around, and then I can select an answer and I can check my work and it'll tell me if I'm right or not. And so they can do that again and again and again. And then if you want to assign in an assessment mode, then they'll just have one chance to answer it. And you can see later if they get it right or not. And I want to show you one other thing on this. I'm going to go to present to class. This is cool because it has these base 10 blocks and you can drag them out here. So I can say, oh, I want to do 10. There's a 10 block and you can model this for the class. drag just the way they would with physical manipulatives, they can do that digitally. So it kind of mimics that. And it's a great way for them to just practice in this digital environment. So those are really great activities. And like I said, they're already there for you. You can assign them to the class, and there's lots of ways you can use them in short bursts, in whole class, in small groups, to just practice what is an assessment and how do I answer questions and show what I know. This little green box just tells you what students will have to do when they're accessing Seesaw. It's very simple. They hold up that Clever badge like we saw in the video, and then the page will show up. We have a picture of it later in the deck. They'll click on the Seesaw icon, and then I'll show you what this looks like. Then once they get to their Seesaw class, oops, come back over here, there's this activities button here. And that's where they will find, I assigned this activity best pet poll. So there'll be a green button here where they can put their own response to that. So I really hope that you try those out. I think they can be a really fun way to just get started with assessment. And here we have some quick links to just learning more about Seesaw, direct links to some of those things that I showed you, or you can just go in like I showed you, click on the library link and explore. And then here's some other recommendations.
Yeah, just to kind of bring it back up to the top, some recommendations that we have for how you can leverage Seesaw when you're helping your students get ready and just feel comfortable with the assessments that they'll be taking this year is starting by sharing those assessment questions in a whole group format. Maybe you have the question or you have a conversation about pets and reading some read alouds about what pets are like, kind of building them up the same way that we do with other lessons and activities in the classroom. After they have that conversation, doing that preview mode where you have it up in Seesaw, you can say, oh, you're going to answer this question. I heard all the great ideas. Now I'm going to show you how you're going to answer this question in a really cool format called Seesaw. And you talk them through the whole activity, have them answer questions in that whole group format, and then say, we may not do it today, but during this week or in these next 2 weeks, you're going to sit at a table with Ms. Jackson and we'll talk about it and try it out as a group. And then throughout the week, meeting in those small groups when you're leveraging those paras or the parent educator or the parent volunteers or other school site staff that you have, and pulling students in small group format to try it on their own Chromebooks. You can leveraging those community builder questions because they are those questions. There's no wrong answer. Some kids may like cats, some may like dogs, some may not like pets at all, but they all will get the answer correct because they're answering from their own opinion and themselves. And then in the second week, you can kind of increase the rigor by trying those ELA questions or those math questions that are reinforcing activities and skills that you're already doing in the classroom, but they're just showing them a different way to show what they know in Seesaw. So then when they're doing their STAR assessment, you can prompt it up the same way, like, hey, and now you're just showing what you know in a different digital format. So just giving you guys some recommendations to make it feel a little bit more doable because we know you guys can do it. And now we're just giving you a little bit of extra tools and resources to make it happen. So next, we're going to bring it to the discussion. You've heard a lot from Zarina and I. Really just want to give you guys a second to share how you would use Seesaw in your classroom to work for your students.
There's no open questions.
Yeah, we'll give it maybe 30 more seconds if anyone wants to type anything in the chat. If you think any of these things are useful, how you might start, if you would share the polls or any of those questions with students.
I think one thing that I can share, it's been a couple years since I was in the classroom, but when I was a K-1 teacher, usually when I used Seesaw, I was really giving students a way to kind of share what they know in different ways. And it was really one really cool feature about Seesaw is that they have a family aspect or portal where you can also share with families like, hey, this is what we've been working on. Don't know if you knew it, but your little one really likes cats or really likes dogs or something that's engaging that kind of brings everyone back to why we're doing this work. We're trying to get to know our students in every aspect of them so that we can help them with their learning and achieve success. So really thinking about how Seesaw can help you guys do that in these next few weeks.
We have a question from the chat. Is there a recommendation or advice on how often to use tech with our students? I am planning for once a week, but will that give us enough exposure or practice?
This is a question that we get a lot. And I think we're in this space just in society. So short answer, there is no recommendation on how much or how little. I think that because this is new and these students are what we call, in some spaces I've been heard like digital natives, in the sense that like they've come out the womb using a device. This is the first time that we've seen this in education. So how are we don't have the data or the evidence to say definitely this much or definitely that much. If you Google it, there's tons of research that says that you can do it every single day and tons that say don't do it at all. So I think it's really finding that balance in your classroom space. I think that once a week is a great start, and just giving them time to feel comfortable with it. You guys are the experts in your classroom, so you know, and you are learning and kind of pushing back. If you find something that works for you that we haven't mentioned, please make sure you tag us in it or send us an email, because we're learning with you. I'm sorry I don't have an exact number. What I can do is kind of share some resources from some trusted organizations. Like Common Sense Media is one that we partner with a lot, that really gets the posts of families and educators and where we're going with digital learning. But I can share those resources with you if that's something you're interested in, but we don't have a must do or a maximum or minimum amount of minutes yet.
Yeah, and just to add on, like Devlin was saying, there isn't a right or wrong answer. Once a week is a great place to start. And I think one thing that we really hope for our K-1 students is they're learning just what technology is for learning and what it is for school, because they've used it a lot at home and maybe they've watched videos and played games. And we want them to see that they can interact with something like Seesaw. They can build things, they can have their own opinions, they can create. And so building those mindsets is the most important thing. So once a week is a great starting point, and also helping them feel successful on these new assessments that they have to take, so that they feel like they at least know how to know how to use the tool. So it's not something totally foreign. So I hope that helps get you started. I think I'm going to pass it to Crystal now to go to our next section.
Oh, sure. So we're just going to take a brief collective mindful moment right now as we shift gears to the assessment administration side of this session. So go ahead and take a breath, deep breath in and out slowly. And of course, if you need to take care of your needs, please do that at any time. But we're going to go ahead and shift gears. Next slide, and I'll pass it over to Michelle for a few slides.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Zareen and Devlin again for sharing that information. I could really visualize how students would engage with technology and use their clever badges. And I hope that our teachers are feeling a little more comfortable with how they could introduce the tech with students prior to the assessments, the STAR assessments, and using the app, especially the Seesaw app, really made me think of this piece right before the interim big cycle here that you see that is highlighted. But yeah, that formative piece, getting that formative data before and after the interim assessment administration of the STAR assessments, and using the Seesaw for that would be helpful for teachers, and I think and useful for students as well, and hopefully engaging for students. But the STAR assessments, of course, are our interim measures that the Common Assessment will be using to communicate students' achievement to families and across our district toward our district goals. So the STAR assessments would be administered individually on the devices. And hopefully they've had a chance to get on the computer and use their badge and log in and have the opportunity to feel some success before they dive into taking the STAR assessment. And we definitely have a few weeks before the window opens. If you go to the next slide, we'll get to see when our windows are. So these are our defined interim assessment windows. So you see here, grade K and 1 have 3 defined windows beginning in October, and then again in February, and then at the end of the year as well. By the end of the year, they're totally going to have it, and even probably in the middle. But we hope this information has been helpful to visualize how that process could take place here in this beginning of the year space with your students. Then I'll pass it over to Crystal to share a little bit more about how the students would experience the STAR Assessment Administration.
Thanks, Michelle. So this will be a review for a lot of you if you've come to any of the other STAR sessions that we've held this school year. We did want to make the connection that as you get your students ready with using tech, the STAR assessments are all taken with a device. As Michelle said, one device per student. They will, if they don't have a Clever badge, they will log in using their district Gmail login credentials through clever.sfusd.edu. Next slide. However, if they do have the Clever badge, which Devlin and Zareen showed us as super nifty, if they just have that QR code, it'll bring them straight to their Chrome homepage, or just it'll log them into the Chromebook. They'll open up the Chrome application, and then there will be the Clever. I think at the top they can just select Clever, and it'll bring them straight to their Clever homepage. And this is what a student might see in their Clever homepage. And for the STAR assessments, they would select the red R for Renaissance tile. And then similarly, if you are going to use Seesaw to introduce the tech to your students, they would select that Seesaw tile that is already in there for them. Next slide. And once they select that red icon from their Clever homepage, they will see all of the different STAR tests that our district is administering. So as kinder and first grade teachers, for kinder, it would only be STAR Early Literacy, either in English or Spanish. And then for first grade, it would be STAR Reading and STAR Math. And with younger learners, we know that maybe they won't be reading words just yet. So it's really good to point out which assessment they will take by the color of the triangle on the tile. So for example, if you are giving STAR Early Literacy in English, once the students get to this page of their Renaissance homepage, say, select the tile with the yellow corner, etc. So that will help them to select the correct assessment. Next slide, please. We do have a link here that brings you to a Google Drive folder that has STAR sample videos for STAR Early Literacy in both English and Spanish, STAR Reading and STAR Math in English and Spanish for first grade and all the other grades. We do recommend viewing these videos yourself as the teacher just to see what the student experience is like for an entire session of the assessment. So you can see an assessment from start to finish. The only difference is that the login piece will look different. It doesn't show the Clever login piece or the badge piece, but it will show starting from selecting the tile through an entire administration of the STAR assessment. And you are able to access these videos to show to your students so that they can see what the STAR test looks like prior to them taking it. And maybe that will reduce some anxiety. Just know that it was one of our colleagues who took these tests, so it goes by really fast. The STAR Early Literacy and the STAR Reading and Math will take about 25 minutes on average. It'll vary from child to child, but these videos are about 4 to 5 minutes long, but it does go from start to finish for each assessment. Thank you. Next slide. So we do want to reinforce that it is important to assess the STAR tests with fidelity. We had Devlin and Zareen here to give you some ideas and recommendations for how you could plan and prepare your students for using the devices prior to taking a test on the device. So those are the two pieces for plan and prepare. But in addition, when you are getting your students ready to assess with the STAR, you're also going to motivate them to do their very best. And while they take the test, you are also monitoring them carefully so that you can make sure that they are on track and focusing. So we'll go over a few more preparation items in the next slides. Next slide. Here we have a number of links to the different STAR test administration guides. And Zareen, will you show that one, the star reading guide? Great. So here is what they each look like. It'll be slightly different for each assessment. We're showing star reading since star reading and star math do have different accommodations that you can turn on for your students who have those accommodations in their IEP or 504 plans. So as she scrolls down, you can see a bunch of different hyperlinks. Can you scroll a little bit up? There you go, stop. So you can see one bullet is learn the accommodations available for testing. So that will tell you the types of accommodations that are available for star reading or star math. And then there is a how-to document in the activate these options hyperlink that will teach you as the teacher as to how to turn on those accommodations for those students who do need them. The Star Early Literacy does not have accommodations that you can turn on and off, as it already has embedded supports within it. The items are read aloud to the students, and there is a voice telling them what they do need to do next. I think, oh, okay. So the question was answered. And then please scroll down. Thank you. Another thing to note is we know that the school day is very dynamic. There could be a fire drill. You're taking the test and you thought it was only going to take X amount of minutes, but then it's time to get ready to go to lunch or recess. So there might be a time where a student will have to stop or pause the test, and there is a stop test button at the top right-hand corner that they will select if they do need to stop or pause a test. And once a student selects that, they will have to enter a monitor password. And so this is where monitoring your students is very important, as they will need to be assisted in typing that password, which is AADMIN admin. And that's just the default password, monitor password for our entire district. So this is one way so we can avoid students stopping a test for no reason. And it gives you some sort of idea of who has stopped a test and who might need to resume it later. Just know that the difference between stopping a test and resuming later is if a student decides to stop the test and then admin password is the monitor password admin is entered, they will have to restart from the beginning. If they select resume test later, then and the monitor password is entered, they will leave off when they re-access the test where they were once they paused the test. Okay, we can go back to the slides. Thank you. These are other things that you might want to take note in those bullets. Again, it'll take about 20 to 25 minutes, but that will vary for each student. Next slide. So here are a few more items to think about as you prepare your students and prepare yourself for them to take the tests. Make sure you set the accommodations for your students with those IEP and 504 plans within the Renaissance platform prior to administration. Once you set those in the platform, they should automatically be in place for the student. You don't have to wait a day, but just in case, it is maybe do it a day or two before administering if you haven't already. Also, during testing, if a student does need to resume or stop, just remember the password is admin, ADMIN. Maybe have it on your device that you use in the class on a little sticky note just to remind you. And also, depending on the screen settings of the device that the students are using, when they select their answer for an item, in order to go on to the next item, they will have to select the blue next button. And sometimes the blue next button is at the bottom of the screen and they will have to scroll down. So they might have selected their answer, but they don't see the next button. And it's just a matter of them scrolling down to see that next button. Next slide. As we continue to think about how to prepare students, just remember to remind them to take care of their needs prior to administration. Make sure that you know the test instructions prior to giving the assessment. We also have within our administration resources, there is a an administration guide that tells you what you could say to your students within those. So that might also help with your first administration. For first grade teachers, as you assess with the STAR math, you can optionally provide some scratch paper or manipulatives if those are some things that you use in your classes. They work out those addition and subtraction problems. And lastly, we know that all your students will finish at various times throughout the administration session. So make sure to remind your students that once they're done, they are going to be doing something quiet. So if they do have their books close by, that's a good quiet activity that they can do. Just make sure that their finished activity is not something that's too fun, so that the students just don't rush the assessment so that they can get to that fun thing. So having their book bins there is probably the best quiet activity to do when they are finished. Next slide. One last thing is, I know that Zareen and Devlin already touched on this, but you do know your students the best. So whatever way that you know to motivate them to do their best is something that you might want to do prior to giving the assessment. So whatever pep talk or whatever encouraging words that you've said to them, or maybe that you have a class cheer. It's like something that you can do prior to the assessment, this assessment, just to get them really excited to do their best, and just to remind them that if they do their best, you can be the best teacher for them, because you will know exactly where they are in their literacy and math development to be addressing what they do need from you as a teacher. Next slide. So during the test, you will need to monitor students. So there might be some technical things that they'll need. For example, the monitor password, just making sure that the correct test has been selected, and also just making sure that students are staying focused. It isn't in a secure browser, so this may not be an issue with younger learners, but there is the possibility to open other tabs and windows during the assessment. So just making sure that they're focused and that they're really attending to the questions in the test. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Crystal, for sharing that overview of the STAR administration. Well, I just want to say thank you all for everyone who attended this session, and to let you all know that we're here for you, and we have some additional supports available to help you as you begin this administration. We have office hours every Tuesday from 3 to 4. Teachers and students already have access to Clever, and we do have some teachers already trying out administration during this optional time period, just to see how it works and give students a chance to, log in and see what it's like before they're actually within the defined required window, so that again they're kind of getting practice at what the experience would be like, and you're welcome to do that as well. We have all the links and resources that you've seen in this presentation, and many, many more on our website. And you probably noticed that this session is more focused on the administration of the computer adaptive test, but we do have the CBMs that are administered in K1, and we have a session devoted entirely to the administration of the CBMs, which are administered 1-to-1 on September 27th. So you're welcome to sign up for that and attend that session to learn more about how to administer those assessments. And then down below here, you can see how you can contact us in the Achievement Assessments Office, and also how you could contact DOT and the cohort partners around devices and supports, as Devlin and Zareen had shared earlier. So we wanted to make sure you knew that there's more supports available as you transition into administering these computer-based assessments this year. And then we also have the screen is showing our feedback form. We are here to help, and we are learning these assessments alongside you. So we want to make sure that we hear from you and improve our supports and feedback, and use your feedback to improve the information we provide you. So please share your feedback, and we will, I guess we will wrap it up and let you go on with the rest of your day. Thank you for attending this.